One pill can kill. This is not a marketing tagline, it is reality. Parents are facing an epidemic of fentanyl-laced counterfeit pills. 6 of 10 of these pills has a potentially deadly dose. I'm your host, Jodie Sweetin, and today on Awkward Conversations, we will talk about how we can help protect our kids. And of course, joining me today is the wonderful Amy McCarthy.
Hi, I'm Amy McCarthy, and I'm the Director of Social Work at the Adolescent Substance Use and Addiction Program at Boston Children's Hospital. First up today, we have a dear friend of the show, Lucey, who is the Senior Prevention Program Manager, Community Outreach, and Prevention Support Section, Drug Enforcement Administration. This is Rich's second time on the show as a guest, but Rich is also our main consultant on the show, and we go to him for his support on every episode over the last 3 seasons.
Thanks, Jodie and Amy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so glad to have you with us again. And next is Joe Bozenko. Joe is a Senior Research Forensic Chemist at the DEA, whose focus is primarily the investigation and assessment of illicit drug manufacturing. Welcome, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us as well.
Oh, thank you, Jodie and Amy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Rich, you are sitting in front of the poster that says one pill can kill. Can you explain a little bit about what the DEA's One Pill Can Kill program is?
Yeah, absolutely. At its most basic level, One Pill Can Kill is a campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of fentanyl and fentanyl-laced pills. We launched the campaign in the fall of 2021. We issued a public safety alert back then, and we don't issue those often. And we had issued that public safety alert to warn the public about the alarming increase in the lethality and the availability of fake prescription pills containing fentanyl and meth. And for our viewers to learn more about the One Pill Can Kill campaign, viewers can simply go to dea.gov/onepill.
Perfect. And all of those links that we mentioned today are going to be in the show notes after this, so anyone watching the show can have easy access to those resources. Joe, can you explain in simple terms what fentanyl, fake pills, as well as Xylazine is and why they are so dangerous?
Certainly. So first off, fentanyl is a legitimate medication when it's under the care, custody, and control of, a licensed physician. Because you know what? Their experience, their expertise allows fentanyl to be used in a prescribed manner, right? However, when you take out any of the controls I just listed, it becomes deadly. And I'm here to tell you, as representing the scientific community that works with this type of danger in the public, there's a lot of that out there. So it's a narcotic that kills pain, but it also induces anesthesia, which is part of the surgical application of it. But I will tell you the dangerous side, the side that we're seeing, tens of thousands of people die from, would have been from the fact that it shuts down your respiratory system, the fact it can kill you very quickly, the fact that it is pervasive. I'm not a badge carrier or a gun carrier. I'm a scientist. I see this every day. We see fentanyl in so many different drug substances out there.
Right, and the terrifying thing is that you can't really tell them apart visually. They look exactly the same, and that's intentional.
So the pills, the fake pills that we're talking about, look just like typical prescription pills that you would ordinarily get from a pharmacist, right? However, they're fake, and you cannot tell them apart. You can't visually discern or tell the difference between one that has what it's supposed to have in it versus one that has, if you will, a fake and has fentanyl or different fentanyls in there. It's not just, well, I'll take it and see how I'm feeling because the guy across the room took the same thing and he's fine. We see no quality control in this. You have no idea what's in it. So it's not just the question of, does it have fentanyl in it? Does it have a lot of different things in there that can kill you? So that's the risk that you see. You might think, well, it's a risk, I'll just take this because, yeah, it's probably okay. But I want you to think about that risk 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, or 2 hours from now. Now, I've been dosed with fentanyl. It was an accident. But I can tell you the things that went through my mind as it was affecting me, my sisters. I got 3 sisters. I've got a brother. I've got parents.
And it doesn't take much fentanyl to be deadly. Roughly 2 milligrams, which is, the size of the tip of a pencil. It doesn't take that much, and you don't know if there are hot spots in these pills where it's all concentrated. A lot of these medications and fake medications are made in, clandestine labs or warehouses and things like that, like you were saying, without quality control. Can you tell us a little bit about what these labs look like? And, I think people are assuming that they're produced in a, semi-safe, normal-looking lab, and that couldn't really be farther from the truth.
That's exactly right. There is no quality control. And although you identified me as a scientist, yes, I do work in the lab. Half my time is spent out in the field. So it's not just from pictures that I see this, it's actually from going into these laboratories wearing our big protective chemical gear, going on compressed air, and looking at these crime scenes. They're not clean, they're not sterile, there is no quality control. And back to the point of the fake pills, it's not uncommon for us to see some pills that have very tiny amounts of fentanyl, still can cause you harm, up to 4 times the amount of a lethal dose to kill one person. That's the quality control that we're talking about there. It's non-existent.
Right.
It's not as if someone is sitting there measuring this out so that they can make money. It is happenstance.
Now, Rich, I'd love to answer the question, why put this stuff in these pills? I think that's the big question that I hear a lot of people ask is like, well, why would you put it in there anyway if it's going to kill people? Why, what's the point? Don't you want them to keep coming back?
Yeah, we get that question a lot when we're out at conferences, whether we're staffing our exhibit or doing workshops or what have you. People really don't comprehend the fact that, unfortunately, in our country, we have a lot of demand. And so the drug traffickers, the dealers, they could care less about killing off their customers. For them, the bottom line is money and profit. And one might think, well, aren't they killing off then profit? No, because they know that, unfortunately, with all the people that are dying from this, there are a whole bunch of other people coming in behind them with this demand. So there's this almost like immediate replacement. They have no regard for human life.
Right.
So it's for them, it's the bottom line.
I call it the 3 Ps: potency, profit, and peril. The potency brings profit, and of course we're awash in the peril. Whether it's fentanyl or the new class of drugs we're seeing out there, they know this, and this is exactly their model.
I think also another misconception that a lot of people have is that you're buying these pills from, some dark alley and, it's a hand-to-hand deal and it's all this stuff. There's been a proliferation of online pharmacies, and I think people assume that if it's an online pharmacy, somehow it's safe, it's regulated. How have we seen this change, particularly after COVID and so many people we're getting prescriptions online?
And we know in prevention that 2 of the hallmarks of trying to, create behavior change when it's trying to prevent drug use is access and availability. Jodie, you're absolutely right. Coming out of the pandemic and telehealth and all of the different things that, all of us had to do to still be able to see our doctors and see our specialists and such. But yeah, while you might be placing a prescription order online through your trusted chain pharmacy or even independent pharmacy, that's not what's happening in a lot of these cases. The youth, young adults, and older adults as well, they're getting their pills, they're getting these pills through social media sites. And so I have to tell you, and I could name any one of 4 or 5 different social media sites, I don't need to name them specifically, but social media platforms are not online pharmacies. So people should never be purchasing pills through social media. Our number one message is to never take a pill that hasn't been prescribed by your licensed provider and dispensed through a trusted pharmacy. That message is universal no matter who you're talking to.
Right.
If I could add one more thing in there. Your friend, the guy down the hall, someone that you've seen or played basketball with, they can't tell the difference between a fake pill or not. They may not have that intent in mind, but if the professionals in law enforcement and medicine can't tell the difference, your friend who has the best intention, they can't tell the difference either.
Yeah, we see that all the time at my office is, kids who are shocked and surprised by their test results or by their experiences because, they thought it was their friend's, Adderall pill or their friend's, whatever it was. And, it's very scary, of course.
I have 15 and almost 13-year-old daughters. Telling them you can't trust everyone and your friend might not. I remember hearing that as a kid and being like, whatever. So how do parents have these conversations without leaning into the doom and the terror and the fear where kids just shut off and ignore you, but where you can really have open conversations and let them know, what is going on and that this is the reality of the situation?
Yeah, and Jodie, you mentioned the doom and gloom and the fear, and I want to put out there that with this campaign, some accuse us of using scare tactics, which, I've been in the prevention field for 30 plus years, and we know from prevention science, scare tactics don't work. We know that. The difference here is that these are scary facts.
Right.
That's this is not a scare tactic in that regard. I've been at 2 national conferences over the last couple of months with thousands of attendees, and they've come either in our workshops or to our exhibit, and time again, the number of people that say to us, I had no idea.
Right.
I have no idea that this is going on. To your question about advice, I definitely want parents and other caregivers, anybody who has any kind of an influence or connection with a child, or youth, young adult, what have you. So we're talking coaches, teachers, neighbors. I'm an uncle. I have 7 nieces and a nephew, right? I mean, so it doesn't just have to be the parents and other caregivers, but go to the website that I mentioned, and we're going to keep, promoting that site because it's filled with resources. And there's a couple that I want to point out specifically. So again, dea.gov/1pill. For parents specifically, I suggest they download and read 2 resources that we've posted online specifically for this issue of advice. One is called What Every Parent and Caregiver Needs to Know About Fake Pills. We developed this fact sheet about a year and a half ago. We make sure it's current, so we update it. That's the beauty of having digital resources. And then there's another one just to the issue we were talking about. It's called Buying Drugs Online, What You Should Know and How to Protect Your Kids. So I know you'll put those in the show notes, but those are definitely 2 titles that I definitely think people should get their hands on and read.
Great.
And when you talk about scare tactics and whatnot, when you access that resource, you need to know that actually has scientific backing behind it. DEA's 8 laboratories, thousands and thousands and thousands of exhibit, and a lot of man hours that our forensic chemists are working to produce those results so that when that campaign goes forward, it's not on presumption, it's on hard science, it's on analytical chemistry, it's on the shoulders of the men and women who can provide those numbers. So when Rich talks about updating it, not only is it updating, some of the other facts associated with statistics, but it is definitely updating it with the analytical chemistry from the men and women who see it first. So if you want ground truth, that's a great place to start.
Fantastic. We will make sure that all of that is in the show notes as a reminder that parents can go check out. And, I know that this is not a scare tactic. I live here in Los Angeles, and like most cities across the country, there is, huge fentanyl problems. And having 15 and almost 13-year-old daughters, it's terrifying because we know that they, kids feel invincible, and kids think, well, it's so small. How can it kill me? And recently there was a story of a young woman and her friend here in LA who took pills at school, and one of them was found dead in the bathroom. And I used that as a conversation with my daughter to say, look, I know that parents can sometimes be, we everything's a 4-alarm fire. I said, I'm not being that right now. This is real. I want you to read this story. I wasn't the mom that forwarded the thing. You need to read that. I actually had a conversation. I was like, this happened. This girl was, it was like 3rd period at school. She took a pill. She went to the bathroom. That was it. And having those kinds of conversations and hearing those kinds of stories, it wasn't an hour-long conversation. It was just like, hey, you need to know this. Like, this is really happening, and I'm just letting you know because this is not mom, freaking out about something. This is legitimate. This is someone your age. This is someone who didn't expect this to happen. And, when you share these stories, it startles them. It hits them. And especially, when you hear about it and my kids now, it's a friend of a friend or someone they knew at a different school, and it is definitely not all about being scary or being alarmist. And I tell my kids all the time, it's different than when I was young. Yeah. The risks of being stupid and taking a risk and, oh, whoops, I got, something, maybe I drank too much or something. Now that window of risk is, it can kill you.
I would echo that. In our work at Children's Hospital in our adolescent substance use and addiction program, we see this more and more frequently, as kind of days go by, and it's not an uncommon occurrence that, again, young people are very struck or surprised by, what's in the substances that they think that they're taking. And so again, to that point, for folks at home, this isn't fear mongering. This is real life, and this is the reality in which we live right now. I think, you spoke about some science, Joe, some other scientific pieces, I think, for parents to hear are that we know that, when parents are talking to their kids consistently about the dangers of drugs and substances, that they're 50% less likely to use substances. And so those discussions really do work. They really support your child in understanding and being educated around the decisions that they're making. And so, again, like we've said so many times, the 61-minute conversations, are so impactful.
Right.
So keep up the good work, parents.
We're all doing our best. Yeah. We'll be right back after this message.
Saving lives means staying informed. Knowing the dangers of using fake prescription pills can help those you care about and keep our community safe. As a parent, educator, neighbor, or friend, we all play a role in building safe and healthy futures for ourselves and our loved ones. Do your part to take the first step today. Visit GetSmartAboutDrugs.com to access education, prevention, and treatment resources. Fake prescription pills laced with fentanyl are deadly. Be their protector. Be informed. Visit GetSmartAboutDrugs.com.
I mean, obviously, conversation is one of the number one things. But are there any other ways that parents can really help their kids avoid some of this terrifying, incidents?
I asked the students there what it took for them to really reconsider what was there. And I asked them about these pills that would come out, whether they were ecstasy type or whether they were these knockoffs. And it didn't seem to bat an eye about that Adderalls, there are fake Adderalls out there that have methamphetamine in them, or that there's fake oxycodones out there that have fentanyl in them. And I said, you don't see that as a risk, but there's hundreds of thousands of deaths associated to overdoses every year, and many of them attributed to, say, the novel synthetic opioids. But what if it had something else in there? And where do you draw that line between is there something in there that would make you say, well, I'm not going to take that pill? What if it were testosterone? What would that make the females in the class feel if you were taking something that would cause secondary sex characteristics of male? Or estrogen for the guys. Now, all of them drew the line there. They said, well, we wouldn't take a pill if we knew that was in it. All right, well, how do you know it's not in there? They had nothing to say. Now, my daughter, who's a junior at Pitt, I would ask her the same thing. Madeline, you know what's not in there. You know that it could be any combination of things in there, whether it's an Adderall pill, whether it looks like aspirin. If it didn't come out of that bottle, you can't tell me or reassure me that it's not in there. How do you reassure yourself? And that's an argument that I've had at least some success with my daughter with, but I can tell you it gets the college-age crowd thinking.
That's a great point, Joe. And I want to just go further to expand, the continuum of the age ranges, though. We have a publication, actually, that we produce jointly with our partners at the U.S. Department of Education. It's called Growing Up Drug-Free, A Parent's Guide to Substance Use Prevention. We update it every couple of years, and it really is a real great foundation for parents and other caregivers. Like I said, anybody who comes in contact with a child, start talking with your child when they're young. And people are kind of amazed at this, but preschool and elementary is an okay time to talk to them about this. Certainly the conversation shifts as they get older. But, parents and other caregivers, they need to educate themselves, encourage open and honest communication, as we've been talking about, that no pill purchased on social media is safe, and to create an exit plan for your child. We do that with other drugs, like underage drinking, if marijuana and such. What is going to be that way to communicate? Is a text to the parents or a phone call to the parents to help them, extract them out of a situation, that they don't want to be in. I do want to point people to another website where they can get all of our publications, but specifically Growing Up Drug Free is our website called GetSmartAboutDrugs.com. That's specifically our website for parents, other caregivers, and educators. And you go to the publications link on that website, and you can download all of our publications at no cost.
Fantastic. That, again, will be a link that we have in the show notes. Parents can easily find those resources in our show notes. And, of course, we're going to be doing a whole episode on this later this season about, the talk, how to have that talk, how to have, rather, those talks with your kids. We did an episode about that in season 2 of Awkward Conversations as well. And, it's the thing that we keep coming back to in all of this is talking, communication, relationships, all of these things. And I think also having a very realistic expectation and understanding. I think so many people think my kid would never. And we all hope that, and we want to believe that our kids are smart enough that they wouldn't ever do anything risky. But we know that risk-taking is sort of inherently built into adolescent and young people. A survey conducted by Partnership for Drug-Free Kids found that only 10% of parents believe that their teens have used drugs in the past year, while 40% of teens report use. So being honest with ourselves as parents that maybe as much as we've had the talks, as much as we've done the research and things, that our children might still be taking risks. That we have to be really reasonable in our expectations of what young people do. And if that, I think, is the terrifying thing as a parent, is you're like, I know that no matter what I do, at some point, I have to let them out, to into the world. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that, I'm sure you see that all the time in, your work with families, is how do you balance age appropriate, letting them go, but also making sure that they're still safe. And speaking of safety, what should a parent do if they suspect that their child has taken a fake pill or has been exposed to fentanyl or Xylazine, which is another synthetic drug that is increasing in popularity as well and being found in a lot of fake pills?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we'd want them to call 911. I think that's your first line of action. But also, and now that naloxone is much more accessible than it used to be, make sure you have access to naloxone. That's a medicine, for those that don't know, that actually rapidly reverses an opioid overdose. So there are people who keep it in their medicine cabinets. They keep one in their car. They keep one in the backpack. Here in DC, on the metro system, you never know when something might happen, right? So have access to naloxone, contact your local poison control center. And then lastly, I would say, know your state's Good Samaritan laws, because, they are there. These laws are in place to offer protection to people who give reasonable assistance to those who they think are injured or in danger. So you're at a party, whether it's middle, high school, college, we don't want people to be afraid to help because they're afraid of a repercussion.
Right.
That should never be the reason to not help somebody, and that's why these Good Samaritan laws are in place.
Yeah, and for those who maybe have heard of it, Narcan is one of the brand names of naloxone, and it's one of the most readily available. And you can get them now at most pharmacies. You can purchase it through the pharmacist, and I have some with me. I keep it in my car. I keep it in my backpack. I have it at home. Not that there's anyone around me that I know of that is using opioids, but I live in a big city. I do a lot of work in the community. It happens. I see it. And knowing how to be prepared, I would much rather know that I've got some in my cabinet, and God forbid something happens to one of my children or one of their friends. I know that I have the resources to keep them, to hopefully bring them back. So, Joe, could you speak a little bit to that? You said you were accidentally dosed, but I'd love to hear a little bit about what exactly it takes for someone to interact with these pills and potentially have side effects.
Okay, so first off, coming into contact with fentanyl, say if it gets on your skin or if you touch the pill and whatnot, it's not likely to cause any kind of overdose situation. All right. Fentanyl's main threat is if you take it into your body, such as it's inhaled or you take a pill. Or if it gets onto any of your mucous membranes, such as your lips, your nasal membranes, that's how it can get into the body and cause damage. I will tell you, as scientists in our laboratory, we're wearing gloves, we're wearing jackets, and we're wearing glasses. One of the more important things we're wearing is a mask, because one of the big threats is fentanyl being inhaled. When our scientists are actually working in our lab, that's what the problem that they have, is that when these are ground and when these bags are opened up, fentanyl can get everywhere and it can be inhaled. So that's the big threat then it comes to, say, law enforcement or to the public, but not getting it through your hand.
You know, something that Rich was talking about was that it's not just parents. It's anyone that has influence or you know, a relationship with young people to really get this message across. So how can parents and communities really work together to help prevent this?
Yeah. Well, first I would suggest check to see if your community has a local coalition that is focused on, you know, preventing drug use among youth, young adults, whomever. And if your community doesn't have one, there is a national organization, and I'll give you the website. It's CADCA, CADCA.org. It's the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. If your community does not have a local coalition, go to this website, learn how to start one. Let's not leave out the schools, right? So they're part of the equation as well. So you can help to organize an information fair at school to help raise awareness of the impact of drug use on individuals, on families, on communities. Bring up these issues before the local school board and the PTA. If it's not on the agenda, get it on the agenda. Again, the more people that we can encounter to raise awareness. I keep going back to that, raise awareness. If so many people aren't aware that this is such an issue. Local houses of worship, the faith-based communities, they're a part of the equation as well. And then lastly, contact your local DEA office for educational resources and information. If you go to DEA.gov, under the Who We Are section, there is a whole map of all of our 23 different field divisions. We are all across the United States. And we can help put you in touch with your local DEA office because they can help you with resources as well. They may even send out, you know, if it's, you know, whether it's a chemist or one of the special agents or one of the intelligence research folks. They go out and do school and community presentations all the time talking about these drug trends. So definitely get in touch with your local DEA office to help out as well.
We know from research that communities that engage in these advocacy and kind of educational campaigns do truly see a reduction in substance use in their communities. And so again, you know, the facts are there. Like talking about it in our families, talking about it in our communities, it does really yield positive results for everybody.
Absolutely. And talking about it realistically, talking about it openly, talking about it with, you know, real facts and real science behind it, I think is so important. And, you know, it's also knowing that you have to allow your kids a certain amount of freedom, but that if you tell them, you know, we have an exit plan. No matter what happens, I love you. If you're with someone and this happens, here's what to do. Can you tell us about Xylazine as well and why it's, you know, it also is resistant to Narcan and naloxone, and what the dangers are of Xylazine?
So Xylazine's been around for a while, but it's really just a veterinary use medication. It's found its way into the drug supply. It's been in there for a while. The problem with Xylazine is twofold. One, there is a substantive belief in the medical community that Xylazine actually helps extend the effects of fentanyl. That means it would last longer, could potentially pose a greater danger. But there's also the side that when this gets into the drug supply, you actually find it causes ulcerations on the skin to where the skin starts to rot off on the user's body. So there is that side of it that maybe doesn't get as much of the attention, which are absolutely hideous to see when you see the articles associated with it.
I have definitely seen some of them, and I have seen some of them in person, and it is heartbreaking. If you've ever seen a user who is struggling with abscesses, that is nothing compared to what Xylazine can do to the body, and it's really terrifying.
Right, it's a different class of drugs.
Right.
So the naloxone is not going to work on the xylazine. They don't have the same, if you will, antidote or countermeasure.
Right.
So when we talk about that, it's not as if naloxone is going to recover the day completely. You still have a drug that doesn't respond to the naloxone. I will tell you, as a forensic chemist, when I advise our investigators, there's a lot of fentanyls out there we have no data on medically, no data on scientifically.
Right.
The unknown is a very big threat, and yes, those unknowns do appear in pills.
Yeah. And changing the chemical compounds is something that I know so many labs do. Even, we talked about this on another episode where, a lot of, quote unquote head shops or places that you can get, the pipes or, smoking paraphernalia, things like that, also sell pills that are, fake compounds. And they're constantly changing the chemical, components in them to skirt around the new things that are being, outlawed. And so oftentimes you don't know what they're just kind of like, well, try this and see if we can get around it. And that's horrifying because you buy something in a package that looks like it should be safe or that looks like it's from, and you really have no idea what it is.
Correct. And again, it comes back to the 3 Ps. That's why it's going to continue to change,
right?
Because potency brings, profit.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe and Rich. I really, really appreciate you coming on the show today and answering so many questions. Again, all of the information will be in our show notes. There will be links. So thank you so much, Joe and Rich. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to do that. And, we're all in this together. So we'll all find a way through it. Oh, and I had to thank both you, Jodie and Amy, for your work in this whole process. Volunteering your time, helping to get the word out, having the conversations. I said it last year, awkward conversations. Let's try to normalize the conversations, right?
Yep.
And you're helping to do that, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's
Truly
an honor. Yeah.
Yep. We are out of time, everyone, but please join us next week for another awkward conversation.
I always tell kids, bullying isn't just the mean things we do. It's all the nice things we never do.
A lot of times some bullies do have some form of trauma that they're living through.
Oftentimes, the bully is themselves a victim of some sort of bullying from either a parent, a caregiver, or they don't have a good attachment to a caregiver or parent or anything.
Make sure to check out getsmartaboutdrugs.com. Parents, caregivers, you can find so many resources of great information there about how to talk to your kids and make these conversations a little less awkward. A huge thank you to the Elks DAP, which is the largest all-volunteer nationwide drug awareness program, and also a huge thanks to the DEA for their outreach program and for making this possible.
The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Awkward Conversation series are solely those of the individuals, speakers, commentators, experts, and/or hosts involved, and do not necessarily reflect nor represent those of the production, associates, or broadcaster, or any of its employees. Production is not responsible and does not verify for accuracy any of the information contained in the series available for viewing. The primary purpose of this series is to educate and inform. This series does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. This series is available for private, non-commercial use only. The production, broadcaster, or its channel cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program.